This presentation will be a discussion about Eleanor Roosevelt as a servant leader. The definition of servant leadership is one who is servant first, making sure other people's highest priority needs are being served. We see this example throughout history when Eleanor Roosevelt would discuss that she preferred helping people over attending superfluous activities. Eleanor Roosevelt was an advocate for women in the workplace, the right of all people disregarding race, and a voice for refugees. She was a servant leader who changed the path for women in leadership by advocating for minority issues. Servant leadership has three main components we will discuss. The theory is heavily based in altruism and self-sacrifice. The definition of servant leadership is: servant leadership begins with a natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then a conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. It's noted that behaving ethically, empowering followers, and creating value for the community are three of the components required for servant leadership. The expected outcome of servant leadership is that it will likely have a positive impact on society. Eleanor became involved in many different organizations, including the Red Cross, the Women's Trade Union League, the New York Democratic Party, and the League of Women Voters. Eleanor desired to work for important causes. We notice that she joined these bodies as a member at large and not as their leader, even after being the First Lady of the United States. This is an important note when evaluating servant leadership. Eleanor sought to volunteer at the ground level, not actually seeking a title. The first criteria for servant leadership is behaving ethically. We see Eleanor Roosevelt display this during the crisis at the Little Rock Central High School. This high school was a Southern all-white school that began integrating black students. The first day of class in 1957, the governor called in the Arkansas National Guard to prevent black students from entering the school, and they weren't allowed to enter for 21 more days. Eleanor Roosevelt's compassion for those less fortunate, as well as her desire to create equality, led her to make the statement you see on the slide. Eleanor understood that the country needed someone who could lead by an example. As a female in the 1950s, she was unable to walk the students into the school. You could easily speculate Eleanor would lead the children through the door today if the event was occurring, as this is what we would expect of a servant leader. Because of the time frame, Eleanor was forced to use the social power she had garnered through her time as the First Lady of the United States in a more time frame appropriate manner. Empowering followers is the second part of servant leadership. Eleanor was a firm believer and advocate for equal rights across all ethnicities. We see this in an example related to the group, the Daughters of the American Revolution. This group prevented Marian Anderson, a world-renowned African-American singer, from performing. Eleanor then rescinded her membership from the Daughters of the American Revolution and proceeded to have a free public recital for Maria Anderson. 75,000 people showed. The action taken by Eleanor Roosevelt here is significant when analyzing how she will empower others. Eleanor was able to create physical change for Marian rather than imploring men in leadership to fix the problem. The third criteria for servant leadership is that the leader must create value for the community. Notably, Eleanor worked to undo harm caused by internment camps during World War II. After visiting an internment camp, she spoke the quote you see on the slide. Eleanor campaigned that the camps needed to be closed as soon as possible. She followed this with a reminder to the American people that America is a melting pot of races and that a country should not lock down a single group of people. She convinced her husband to discuss efforts and push a proposal to permit the inmates' release. Eleanor urged Americans to live up to the American ideal of fairness. By Eleanor's advocacy for all the people in America, she bettered her community and the community of the American people as a whole. In Eleanor's time, there was a split perception in society as people discussed her. On one side, she was a fiercely independent woman, pushing daily for the rights of those less fortunate. And on the other side, there were white supremacists disgusted with the work she did assisting people in communities of color. Some of those hated her so much there was actually a Ku Klux Klan bounty placed on her head. It's quoted that when Eleanor Roosevelt dissolved the physical distance between white and black, she threatened not only white womanhood, but also the white supremacist order. This statement is obviously anti-servant leadership. Eleanor's push to improve integration is congruent with her ethical decisions and her embodiment as a servant leader. Servant leadership has many criteria that must be completed for one to be called a servant leader. Behaving ethically, empowering followers, and creating value for the community are all traits required. The expected outcome of servant leadership is that it will likely have a positive impact on society. And throughout this presentation, we see that Eleanor Roosevelt fulfills each of these notions. She was able to change society and their archaic ethical views. Not only that, she left a positive impact on society by leaving a legacy and example for others to follow.